So you leave this meeting as well then?
I do. Well, yes, I do, because, well, the topic for this evening is overwhelming. Because I've felt overwhelmed the last couple of days, and I thought I really am looking forward to, as much as I practice when I can my mindfulness, it still doesn't prevent me from, at times, having the odd moment. And I certainly had a moment over the last few days where I just felt overwhelmed. So I thought that would be a good topic, because then you can all help me. You can all provide therapy for me, because yeah, I'm not doing this for anybody else's benefit but my own. That's it, exactly.
Okay.
Purely selfish. There's nothing altruistic about this whatsoever. It's all only self-interest. Okay, well, before we get into things from a discussion point of view, we should take a moment to be in the moment and be aware of the moment. So let's begin by just sitting and being aware of the weight of our body sat in a seat, aware of our back pressing against the back of the chair, aware of gravity pulling down from the top of our head all the way down through our neck, down through the spine, all the way down to your bottom. And as you're aware of that spine, just allow the spine to straighten slightly. Hi! Come in.
Sorry.
No, you're all right. Okay. We just started sitting. So we were sat on our chair, and we brought to our awareness our spine. And we've become aware of the spine just straightening slightly, feeling ourselves sat with dignity. As the spine straightens, we can become aware of any tension that we may be holding there, in the neck or in the shoulders. And in sitting with dignity, in feeling the spine straighten, we can release any tension that we are holding at this moment in the neck and in the shoulders, and down through the spine, down to the bottom. Now we can connect with our breath and just bring our awareness to our breath. And be aware of breathing in and breathing out, moment by moment. And connecting the breath to the spine. We can begin to be aware of how it all connects, so how our spine supports our body, and it supports our head, and also it supports our breath. And be aware of how your breathing is freed by your spine straightening and lengthening. And now for the next few moments, just bring your awareness to the fact that you are sitting and breathing, nothing more. Good. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. So bringing it back to our topic of being overwhelmed or overwhelming. Has anybody here ever felt overwhelmed? Good. Good. Would anybody like to share an experience of feeling overwhelmed, or maybe what contributed? You don't go into as little or as much detail as you like about occasions in your life when you have felt overwhelmed. In either a good way or a negative way. It can be either. We can maybe discuss that later. Anybody? Otherwise I'll take the floor, I don't mind.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your story.
Me?
Yes, that's okay.
It's fine.
20 minutes ago.
Okay. From a personal perspective, I find that when I have feelings of being overwhelmed, it is the saying, the straw that breaks the camel's back is very apt. It's never one thing. It's never one huge incident that makes me feel overwhelmed. I've experienced huge incidents in my life, and I'm sure you all are all the same. There have been moments when something enormous has happened within your life, either for good or for bad. And I'm the same. I've had incidents in my life that have been like that, but I don't find that necessarily overwhelming. What I find overwhelming is when you have that build-up of lots and lots of things. I've got to do this, and this, I would like to do this, and this needs to happen, and then this event takes place which is seemingly out of my control, and the to-do list is getting longer, and just, yeah, things build up over time. And I suppose it's like that. It's like the straws being added, and it's lots and lots of little things that on their own would be inconsequential and very easy to handle and deal with. But if you add enough of those things in, eventually the general feeling is, oh my God, it's too much. And that's when I feel overwhelmed. How about other people? Is that the same for you, or do you find that it maybe is one thing doing it?
No, for me it's that.
There's lots of little things.
Yeah, right on top of you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I think that, but also you can have, an overwhelming day, a day that's like completely out of, just unbelievable day that you think, what the hell happened there? Is that seriously something that happened? Here's an example. My ex-boyfriend, didn't know when I first met him, but found out that he was schizophrenic. And one particular time when he was unwell, he decided we were going to go for a walkabout around the West End. He had it in his mind that we were going to go and watch Betty Blue Eyes.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, we might be able to do this. I don't know, this could be a possibility. We might be able to hold it together. But he had become completely unpleasant in this Greek tapas place in Covent Garden, so I was starting to wonder if we were going to actually have a bit of a problem. Then we got to the theatre, and it was opening night, and it was press night, and everyone was there. And so he marched up the steps and he said, "We need 2 tickets." And he said, "I'm terribly sorry, sir, that tonight's not open for the general public." He was having none of it. The next thing we know, the Paps are all there, and I'm standing on the stairs of Betty Blue Eyes with Jane Judy Dench just right next to me holding some flowers, talking to someone, and I'm trying to pull this madman out the building. And I was just thinking, you're kidding me, this is not really happening. But it did. That was one of my days.
And when was it? What was the point that you felt overwhelmed? Was it while it was going on, or was it afterwards when you had
I was
that?
standing on the steps at the opening of the staircase of the theatre with flashes and cameras and all these people and this crazy conversation going on beside me, and just me being trapped, being like, what do I do? What exactly am I to do here?
So was it a moment of mindfulness when you suddenly were absolutely planted in the present moment and aware of everything that was going on?
Maybe.
Was it something different?
I don't know what it was.
Don't know what it was. Okay.
I laugh about it now, and it's quite funny, really.
But that was being dragged, manipulated into a situation where you felt out of control,
I suppose I felt out of control, but
or did it just feel ridiculous?
I suppose I did feel ridiculous, but I was overwhelmed with what do you do? What do you do?
I suppose is that
what do you say? What do you do? How do you react? Should I laugh? Should I just start doing a dance?
Well, I suppose if you look at it, you talk about overwhelming. You think of concepts of sort of magnitude and enormity and size, because that tends to be what it is, isn't it? And there you've got that, haven't you? You've got significant numbers of people in one of the largest cities in the world, and at an event which has got a lot of interest, and then personalities around you who are, Dame Judy Dench is, an enormous personality, and I don't mean that in a physical sense, because I suppose it all lends weight to it, doesn't it?
It
builds
it.
It all adds to it. Okay. So again, we've got that kind of layering thing going on.
Yeah.
Little thing, which starts off as seemingly little things, then it builds and grows. Okay. Anybody else have any observations, additions, comments? No? Okay. Right. Let's try another little exercise, and then we'll explore being overwhelmed a little more. So at this point now, I'd like you to engage your hearing. And just bring your awareness to listening. And for the next few moments, we're just going to accept sound as it happens. And if your mind wanders, which it is likely to do and perfectly entitled to do, just accept that your mind has wandered, that thoughts and ideas have come to into your head, and in acknowledging them, just let them pop like a bubble and bring your awareness back to listening. And as you're aware of sound, also become aware of the fact that the field of your hearing extends. So it's not just sounds within the room or sound in the immediate vicinity, but gradually just the field just extends wider and wider. Good. When you're ready, you may open your eyes.
You were sleeping.
Did you?
Yeah, it was nice.
I'm glad you're feeling relaxed and at peace there.
Yeah,
Okay.
nice. Put me to a joke.
So we talked a moment ago about this layering, things building up, and then it gets to the point where we feel overwhelmed. And talked about many of those being external factors, things that we feel we need to do, events that happen around us, situations. But I wonder how many of the things that contribute to feeling overwhelmed are not external, but are internal. How much of the stuff that gets layered and builds up and contributes to us feeling overwhelmed is actually our own thoughts and feelings about where we find ourselves or what we find ourselves having to do, or our responses to the situations. Now, how much the event that you described, how much of that feeling of being overwhelmed was as a result of your own thoughts and feelings and responses to what was happening, as well as the actual external.
I would have handled it differently today.
Because you would respond
Yeah.
differently. Yeah. Okay, good. Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
But also that, yes, I think that we are, when we are not mindful and we do not have, it's not about having control over our thoughts and feelings. And we talked about this a few weeks ago when we talked about thoughts and feelings and whether it was appropriate to be able to control them. And we sort of kind of came to the conclusion that no, we shouldn't try and control how we feel and how we think. We should just allow it and accept it and be mindful of it so that we can understand it and allow it to change so that it's not negative. But when we are not mindful, it's very easy for those thoughts and feelings and responses to be, what's the word? As if it's not control, unmeasured. Or if we, it's when we talked as well a while ago about things becoming repressed because we weren't aware of them. When we're not able to be aware of how we feel about something, then it either can become repressed because it gets pushed down, or it becomes, because it's unknown, because we don't really have awareness of how we feel or understand how we feel, then it becomes this hidden mass that adds to the pile that makes us feel overwhelmed. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
A little bit. Well, what I'm trying to say is a part of mindful practice is, one, to be aware of what's happening around us, which is why we practice listening and looking and tuning into our senses and being aware of where we are in this moment in time right now. Because as you develop that practice and are able to bring yourself to the present moment, then you can also become aware of how you feel and what you are thinking. And when you feel angry, being aware that you feel angry and being aware of the reasons why you feel angry and accepting that you feel the way that you feel. Or if you feel upset, that's probably a better emotional feeling to center on. If you feel upset, there's nothing worse than just feeling upset and not really knowing why and not really understanding why. It's just, because then it can lead to further anxiety because you don't really understand it. You don't know, why do I feel so upset? But then when you practice mindfulness and cultivate the ability to be aware, starting with awareness of what's going on around you and where you are and what you can see and think and see and hear, then you can also, that ability to be aware, you can then use to become aware of how you feel. So if you feel upset, you become aware that you feel upset.
That happened to me in the week. I was upset. I don't know why I was upset. I just woke up and I just thought, just be upset. Not, I didn't cry like that, but just a bit emotional. And I dealt with it. I accepted I was emotional.
Good.
And then got on with the rest of the day. It was fine.
Well, that's it.
And it was lovely.
It's that
really nice.
So yeah, the first step there was being aware of it.
Yeah.
This is how I feel.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to distract yourself and thinking, I must distract myself, I must go this way, and then it becomes repressed and sort of never not dealt with.
Yeah. I must have practiced it because I used to suffer with anxiety a lot. I'm not saying it's gone forever, but it's a lot better.
No,
so
good.
I've accepted, and this mindfulness has helped me. So
great. Well, that's it. So you first of all you can be aware that you feel upset, and then accept that you feel upset, and in doing that, gradually over time you will be able to become aware of why it is that you feel upset. So actually you'll go, that's why I feel upset, because of either this situation that I am in now, which it probably isn't. It's probably a situation from before. Something happened earlier in the day or yesterday, and it's still going around in the back of your mind, and you're unconscious, and it pops up every now and again when your ego decides to get involved, because ego is the big criminal in all of this, because your ego goes, oh no, I was definitely right then, how very dare they criticise or say that to me, and it keeps going back to it and regurgitating it, bringing it up again. But as you develop your practice of being aware, then you can be aware of how you feel, and aware that you feel upset, and then become aware of why you feel upset. And then in future moments, when similar situations may arise or similar eventualities happen, you're aware. Last time.
I haven't got to that bit yet.
It made me feel very upset. Or, well, maybe it doesn't even... You kind of just then can respond appropriately, because you then find yourself in this situation again. And without having to be too... Because the last thing that I would advocate is that people become too analytical about these things, because that can often happen. People can become very analytical and go, when I was in this situation, this happened, that happened, and I felt this way. And it all becomes quite unnatural and turns people into the most ghastly bores. you know what I mean, don't you? And those people that practice that but if by practicing mindfulness it becomes a lot more natural, and it's not about being consciously divisive about manipulating situations or constructing your response becomes a lot more natural. And then you're not anxious about feeling upset. You accept the fact that maybe you will feel upset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Because that can build a lot of anxiety. When a situation happens, you think, oh, you know, the last time this happened, I felt terrible. And I felt terrible for days, and I didn't sleep. And because I didn't sleep, I was really bad-tempered, and I took it out on the kids, and this happened. And then before you know it, you've constructed this entire imaginary situation that you then feel anxious about, and it's all a construct, it's all imaginary. Whereas if you are just aware, go, okay, this has happened, I accept this has happened, this is how I feel about it in this moment, and I accept how I feel about it in this moment, then none of that imaginary construct ever happens, and the anxiety that develops because of that doesn't happen either. And so actually the feeling upset is much reduced because it doesn't come with that side portion of massive anxiety about what the ramifications are of it moving forward.
Some people chew over the negative stuff, don't they?
Oh,
is that the
yeah.
word?
Yeah,
Chew
definitely.
over?
It is.
I've had 2 bad days and I've had 1 nice day. Well, enjoy today, Sunday. Enjoy me being here.
That's it. Let it go.
2 days that you did that are awful. Well, you've got me now, so accept I'm here and enjoy me.
Yes.
But she still goes on and on and on.
And that's part of that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And it's an internal process. It's going over all the stuff that's happened. Can't believe they did that. This, and I can't believe they said that to me. And it goes over and over. And whilst I'm pointing here and doing that cycling movement here, but actually what happens is it then goes up.
I said you make yourself feel
It
good like
makes
that.
some sense, yeah.
I said you can make yourself feel.
Yeah.
Time to go.
So that feeling of being overwhelmed it's closely tied to anxiety, and one thing feeds the other. You know, our anxiety can make us feel overwhelmed, and being overwhelmed can make us feel anxious. And before you know it, we're in the doctors asking for antidepressants.
And adding another layer of on the top of the overwhelmingness. If you know.
Exactly.
All stuff.
Exactly.
But they're built towards it.
And you just it's like you're like the pea then under all those mattresses.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's clap. We haven't done the clap for a while. This is a nice one. You'll enjoy this one for those of you that haven't done this. Have you done it? You haven't done it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah.
So, the purpose of the clap is that I clap, and when you see me clap, you clap. And rather than it being 7 people randomly clapping, it's just one clap together. And it's good. So,
What if we're not quick enough?
on my level, you don't have to be quick. No, you just be in the moment. Be aware. Ready? That wasn't bad for the first one. The first one's usually rubbish and sounds really random and haphazard. That was pretty good. Okay. It's the anticipation, isn't it? But you're in the moment. And it develops awareness. And it develops empathy. Because you're tuned into an individual. Caught you out of that. Distracted by talking, see? Don't be distracted. Be in the moment. Two more. Very good. I'm always tempted to just do one of those.
The school kids to do that, to concentrate.
Yeah, no, you should. It's a mindful exercise. It's one of the ones that I put in my Mindful Schools programme, which I'm yet to roll out, but it will happen. It will happen. You see, it's just another one of those things
On top of your...
on my list of things to do, which...
I wish I'd learnt mindfulness at school.
I think it would.
I think my life would have been so different.
I think it's an incredibly valuable skill that if people learnt it and practiced it from a very early age,
Yeah.
it would solve a huge amount of
The earlier the better.
problem.
I wish I'd known it when I bring my 2 children up on my own, because it would help me. Now I think back how stressy I was.
My daughter was 2.5. I was getting to like breathe when she was a little bit frantic, you know, when she was getting crazy. I said, Jasmine, breathe. She go, it's about 5 or 6 breaths and she's off again. Start.
Yeah, but it stopped. Yeah, that's good.
That's
yeah.
good. It's just that little moment. Okay. Well, we've talked about being overwhelmed in a very negative way. But there are moments when feeling overwhelmed can be as a result of something positive.
Like when I look at my dog, I
Okay.
get this overwhelming love
Yeah?
for this wonderful furry creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else been overwhelmed?
When I go see like live bands, I'm up there dancing
Yeah.
and I'm in the moment.
Good.
You know, that's what, it's my like, bit of an outlet.
Excellent.
I don't think it would be
There's
that way.
joy when you're trying to explain somewhere or some event that you've had that was really special, spiritual event, if you like. That's quite overwhelming as well. Yeah. Like for example, I was in Fiji and I stayed with my family for 2 weeks, and I was treated like a king. Really was. And you know, when I try and tell people about that, it just brings it all back. You know what I mean? How fantastic it was.
Lovely, it's nice.
It is, it's good.
I guess, now that you've said that, I've been overwhelmed with like beauty, like you've been to different countries,
Yeah.
and then you've just got this amazing view in front of you, and you just stood there and just go,
Yeah.
just look at that.
Yeah.
And just overwhelmed with the view in front of you.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Unexpected, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
When you turn a corner and something does
Or if you're having a really bad day and someone's suddenly kind to you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
nice.
that's
Yeah.
Or a smile in a
Yeah,
city
it's
that
really
you've never
nice.
been to before. Something like that.
especially like if you've been shopping, you've had grumpy people down and someone nice. Yeah, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
So there's some very interesting things to pick out from those few comments. So the first thing that I would like to highlight is that when we were talking about feeling overwhelmed in a negative way, generally it was lots and lots of little things piling up. But when it's in a positive way, generally it's just one thing that can happen. It's like, whether it's a dog or, you know, a view. Or, I mean, maybe your experience with your family, the family in Fiji, was perhaps lots of little things, but you talk about it as a single thing, this single event, the way this family made you feel. So it is possible for one thing to make you feel overwhelmed in a positive way. So that's a real positive, I suppose. Second thing, in the majority of anecdotal evidence is put, in the majority of the anecdotes put forward, at the heart of it is a relationship, often with people. You know, you talked about this family, so that's a relationship with people. I'm sure your dog has his own personality, and if he could talk, he would be a very, a wonderful person. And for the purposes of this meeting, we will. What's his or her name?
Boo.
Boo Boo. Is it a boy?
The boy
A
dog.
boy. A boy. Well, Boo Boo is a person for the purposes of this meeting. I'm sure you do have friends of the non-canine variety as well,
I
but
think he's just been demoted.
has he?
Boo-boo.
But then there are also, we've also you talked about people that you don't know. That smile. Maybe it's that, you've had a terrible day, you go to a shop, somebody smiles to you, and shows you some kindness. And it may be from somebody that you don't know. But it's still a relationship, an interaction with a person, and that person just hits you and gives you that feeling of being overwhelmed. So that's important. And then the other one was there's the idea of being overwhelmed by a scene, a view that you might encounter. And I always think that is incredibly profound, because it's a moment of absolute mindfulness, isn't it? When you're stood there on a mountaintop or wherever you may be, and you just look out and you just see breathtaking nature in its most breathtaking unfolding before you, and the sky, the clouds, everything just comes together, and you feel that overwhelming sense of beauty and aliveness and good fortune that you're able to experience that. And that is just a moment of profound mindfulness, because you're absolutely in the moment. You're not labelling what you can see, you're not judging what you can see. You might have the odd thought, wow, isn't that amazing? But kind of the experience goes beyond that. You'd often say, oh, it's beyond words. I couldn't explain it. The feeling was just beyond words. And that's kind of what the aim is with mindful practice. As you practice and you're able to be in the moment, that awareness of the present moment goes beyond words. We don't label things, we just experience being alive. And that moment when you're presented with that wonderful view, overwhelmed by what you can see, is that sense of being alive in this moment, being presented with that, and the wonder and the feeling. So that's it in a very positive sense. So, moving forward, what I would like you to take from this is that feeling overwhelmed isn't always a bad thing. So if you do feel overwhelmed, think of the positives. Or if you're feeling overwhelmed for negative reasons, then find and look for that one thing that maybe will make you feel overwhelmed for a positive one. Whether that's, generally that will be a relationship with somebody, that will be somebody else. Because it all comes down to people. As I said last week, I'd like to think that when we're all laid there on our deathbed, we're not going to be thinking, oh, I'm going to sit in my nice car one more time, or, I would like to, I wish I was lying in a bigger bedroom, in a bigger house. No, you want to be surrounded by the people that you're close to, that you love, those people that make you feel overwhelmed. So search them out, and they will help. Okay. Let's finish as we always finish with some breathing. So you may close your eyes or keep your eyes open, it is entirely up to you. And we will begin by becoming aware of the breath at our nostrils. We'll follow the breath in and out, moment by moment. And as you follow your breath, I will invite the bowl to sound, and that is your cue to bring your awareness back to your breathing if it's warm. So begin by being aware of the breath of the nostrils, and aware of the movement of air in and out, with each individual breath as it happens. Now move that awareness back, so you're aware of the movement of air at the back of the throat, up and down in the neck. move the awareness down still further and become aware of the breath at the top of the chest. And aware of the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe in and breathe out. Now finally become aware of the breath at the very base, at the diaphragm. And now allow the spine to straighten, allow the chin to drop slightly, and just be aware of the three components of the breath: breathing in, breathing out, and then the pause between breaths. We breathe in and feel alive. We breathe out and smile at being alive. And then allow that smile to dissolve and relax into the peace between breaths. Breathe in and feel alive. Breathe out and smile. Smile into the peace between breaths. And when you are ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you very much. Oh, and don't forget your homework. And for those of you that don't know about the homework is when you first wake in the morning, take 3 mindful breaths and be aware of your breath as early in the day as you can. So, and if you don't manage it when you're first open your eyes in bed or in the ditch that you wake up in, then as soon as you can within the day, whether that's making tea or crawling out of the ditch, Just become aware of 3 breaths as early as you can in the day. And that's your homework. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you